Redline Logbook here for D. Gray Man's Edo and Eastern Branch, Part 4. And we're finally starting off back with Alan, who is currently still training with Fu, who is beating the shit out of him and yelling at him for not taking this fight seriously. Alan obviously is saying that he is trying to fight properly, but Fu points out that he's just staying on the defensive. He's not actually trying to proactively attack her, and she starts to get irritated, starts hitting him in the head, yelling at him, insulting him, calling him short. Eventually, all this abuse causes Alan to snap, and the two have to be dragged apart by the three rookie scientists because this went from being training to just a plain old brawl. And the stress is really getting to Alan at this point. He starts screaming that he doesn't know why. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to have to deal with this anymore. He wants to just get his arm back, get his innocence back, go back to the front lines, and he doesn't understand why it's not happening. While watching all this on the monitors, Bach then suggests that Alan be let outside so he can get rid of some of the stress and calm down, but Bach then points out we can't do that because the Noah are after him. From the recording they have of Alan almost dying, they know that the Noah are specifically targeting anyone connected to a certain someone. Whoever that is, they don't know, but the point is Alan is one of those targets, and so he has to stay inside of the Asian branch until he gets his innocence back. After calming down, Alan realizes he was kind of acting like a jerk there, and he's afraid that Fu might not want to train with him anymore, and he's trying to figure out a way to apologize so they can get back to, figure out how to activate his innocence. But even if she would agree with him, at this point, beginning to feel like it's pointless. He doesn't even remember what it feels like to even invoke his innocence anymore, and he straight up says it's pitch black. Rofa then appears with a lantern, scaring the hell out of Alan. He was asking what she's doing there, and her response is, well, I heard you say it was pitch black, so I brought you a light. And Alan's like, well, that's not actually what I meant, but thank you. Rofa then sits down next to Alan to ask him how he's doing. He basically tells her that he feels sorry for the way he was acting, and he actually feels guilty about wasting everyone's time. But Rofa says, no, you're not. Everyone's happy to keep working hard because that's what you're trying to do right now. And she basically asks, why does Alan want to go back to being exorcist so bad? And Alan doesn't really give an answer, but she basically says, probably because you're so kind. Your kindness is what makes you feel obligated to go out and be an exorcist. But him feeling obligated to fight is wrong. People shouldn't fight for the sake of fighting, nor should they live for the sake of fighting. You should fight for other people. People fight because, well, there are things that are precious to us. And then in that moment, the real Rofa appears, freaking out that there's a clone of her flirting with Alan. The clone then gets pissed that her plan was almost finished, but then they got screwed up by this, and she turns back into Fu. Yeah, so Fu has the ability to shapeshift. Alan's about to say something to her, but that's when Fu then starts yelling at him, saying, I did not do this to help you. I'm still pissed off at you, so don't get any bright ideas. Basic tsundere behavior. She starts to walk away when Alan says, thank you for the light. So yeah, she was able to cheer Alan up. As she's walking away, that's when she starts to convulse in pain. And she starts to scream to Bach to get Alan out of there. Then an odd jumble of octagons and sectagons all connect together, rip out of her body. These shapes then start talking, saying, oh, so your body is the entrance to this place. And that is when a level 3 Akuma appears. Obviously, Fu demands, how can an Akuma get through her? There's no way. But the Akuma says, it wasn't me. This is just the power of the Noah's Ark. Level 3 then stares directly at Alan and says, I've come to pick you up. Fu then orders Alan to run, but he refuses because obviously he isn't going to abandon Fu, and that is when a laser shoots through his chest. This laser is actually a thread, the dark matter ability of this level 3. It allows it to apparently break down any object he chooses at a molecular level. Well, the ability to break down any object you choose, so this means there's literally nothing that it can't get through and defeat, is pretty useful. The fact that it takes so long to do so is kind of a shit ability. I mean, if this guy was a level 1 and just shot Alan in the chest, Alan would be dead now. But Alan isn't because the process of breaking down him at a molecular level takes a while, so once again, this ability kind of sucks. On the other hand, the Akuma seems to really enjoy the fact that Alan is now suffering, and I'm going to assume part of the reason why it developed this ability is not to instantly kill its opponent, but to watch them suffer. The one that fought Lena Lee had a very similar personality. The three scientists are trying to cut the thread, but nothing seems to have any effect on it, so Alan is slowly just starting to fade away, and they're all desperately trying to save him. That's when Bach cuts his hand and then orders the sealed god within the building to attack the Akuma. The walls themselves then start firing lasers at the Akuma, which then gives Fu a chance to cut the thread herself, and everyone then is able to run away. An evacuation order is given out through the entire facility to everyone go to the northern wing, which makes perfect sense because this place is fucking massive. It's constantly constantly growing, as we learned in previous chapters. And once every single personnel has been able to evacuate away from the area with the Akuma, he then orders the Seal God to create a wall separating them. But Fu's not stupid. This Akuma can, 1, break down matter at a molecular level, and even if it couldn't do that, it's still level 3, so it could easily smash through this wall. So this is just a stall tactic. So she decides to then shapeshift into Alan, and then goes on the other side of the wall. Of course, Alan tries to stop her, but he's already half dead thanks to his molecules being scrambled. On top of that, literally everyone else is holding him back, because Alan's the one they gotta protect. The level 3 didn't stop for 1 second. It was able to take all of those attacks, because none of them were innocent, so it can't hurt it anyway. And then immediately finds Fu disguised as Alan, and is ready to kill him. Fu smirks and basically says her goodbyes to Bach. On the other side of the wall, Alan is currently yelling at Bach to let him through. Bach then tells Alan, "You need to calm down. You are an exorcist. The value of your life for this war is incalculable. We cannot lose you. If Fu has to die for that, that's just how it is." Alan then immediately calls Bach out for this, because it's clearly written all over his face that he does not want to lose Fu. He's starting to break out in hives like he does when he gets really stressed, and his face looks like it's about to break. Alan then pushes Bach to the side and says he's going to open this wall himself. Obviously, Bach cannot let him do that, and he orders everyone to basically tackle Alan and keep him pinned. And Bach basically points out to Alan, there's no way in hell he can let him go. 1, your molecules are breaking apart because you were hit by the dark matter, and 2, you can't invoke your innocence, so you can't kill the Akuma anyway. You're just running to your death, and he cannot let that happen. What Alan is doing isn't brave, it's just stupid. Alan then calmly responds with probably the greatest counter of all. He threatens to tell Kamui that Bach has been stalking his sister. This, of course, throws Bach off like crazy, which then gives Alan enough time to explain himself. Alan begins to explain that the moment he saw the Akuma, he felt his blood moving for the first time in so long. The thing that Alan has been missing, the reason why he can't invoke his innocence, is because this entire time he's been wanting to see the Akuma again. He's been wanting to fight the Akuma, release them from their suffering. He says he's no longer human. He's an anti-Akuma weapon. And he starts to beg Bach to let him go to the Akuma that he wishes to go to so desperately. And this intensity just rattles Bach he opens the wall and allows Alan to go through. As you can imagine, Bach is heartbroken because that's not what Bach wanted. He didn't want Alan to make this decision. He didn't want this to be the choice he made. Alan is more than just a weapon. And Bach straight up apologizes to Alan. Sorry that Alan, a 15-year-old boy, has basically given up his very humanity for the Akuma, and there's nothing he can do for him. We go back to Fu, who is still disguised as Alan, and she is ripped apart. The level 3 just beat the hell out of her. Level 3 is actually complaining that Alan isn't worth the trouble, that there's no reason Noah even sent him on this mission. This was completely pointless. And so the Akuma then demands, why do they care about you? What are you? And obviously Fu responds as Alan, I'm just some brat. The Akuma's like, well, whatever, just die then. Shoots her in the head with his laser. And as she begins to fade, that's when Alan jumps on the back of the level 3. He taps the level 3 Akuma's shoulder for a second. It attacks him, but he's able to jump off and lands in the corner. The level 3 touched its shoulder, and it's actually sparking in pain. So even though Alan technically didn't use his innocence, he still has it inside of his body in some way, and so he's able to do some damage. The Akuma then glares at Alan and says, what are you? And Alan's response is, I'm an exorcist. Fu changes back to herself and is obviously irritated with Alan because she did all this for him and now he's here, but he just looks at her and says, Bach was crying. The Akuma then asks if Alan is strong, because clearly it only cares about fighting at this point. Alan completely ignores the Akuma because he's only focused on the soul. And just as we saw the soul of an Akuma get twisted and suffer even more when the Akuma levels up, at a level 3, you can't even tell it's a human soul anymore. It just looked like this black fog with an eyeball, basically begging to be loved, begging to be saved, begging to be freed from this monster that is holding its soul captive. Alan, of course, says yes to the soul, but obviously to the Akuma, it sounds like he's saying yes to that he's strong. Both are obviously true, but still. Of course, the Akuma then attacks Alan. He's able to use that dark matter laser of his, but a short version, and use it kind of like a sword. And he's trying to get Alan. Alan keeps dodging, can't really fight back because he doesn't have an innocence. Bach shows up, he sees the state that Fu is in and runs right to her. Alan then starts to think to himself the exact same thing he told Bach, that he will live for the Akuma, he will fight for the Akuma. But as he sees Bach run to Fu to hold her, he then begins to realize that he doesn't just want to live for the Akuma. Unfortunately, before he could finish that thought and get to where he should be, his body then begins to shatter and break apart because of the dark matter. Alan basically becomes defenseless at this point, and so the Akuma then is able to then stab Alan with his dark matter swords, and he starts to disintegrate even more to the point where his arm literally begins to just turn to dust. Buck tries to do something. He manipulates the god again to turn the fortress into a weapon that attacks the Akuma, but with just a single finger, it's able to just split the attack in half, rendering it completely useless. The Akuma then decides to insult Buck, then shoot him with its dark matter. He starts to break apart, then shoots Fu with the other one in his other arm, and so they both start to turn to dust. Once again, if this was a level 1 Akuma, these two would already be dead because they would have been shot and that would be the end of it, but whatever. Alan, as he's slowly turning to dust and dying, he then begins to remember the oath that he made when he was a kid, saying that he would live for the Akuma and he would fight for the Akuma and such. He then began to, care about other things than Akuma. He began to care about people, his friends, and he realizes at that moment that a part of him really did forget about the Akuma and stop fighting for them, and he feels guilty about that. But at the same time, he doesn't want to give up on humanity either. He then calls out to his innocence, saying that his left arm from now on will be for the Akuma, and his right will be for humanity. And so Alan makes his vow to his innocence that together the two of them will bring salvation to both. And Alan's innocence takes a new form and is able to then use itself as a shield to protect Buck and Fu. The Akuma actually gets pissed off at the innocence and decides to attack it head on. I'm laughing because it generally just gets annoyed that people will keep popping up and keep getting in his way. The innocence wraps itself around Buck and Fu, and so no matter how many times the Akuma attacks it with its disintegration, it doesn't work. The Akuma then is able to create even more incineration lasers out of its mouth that look like little hands. But once again, Alan's innocence protects them. Buck hasn't realized what's happening at the moment, but Fu has, and she's like, don't worry, this is Alan's innocence. We're safe now. The mask that is part of Alan's innocence then starts to turn towards the Akuma, looks it in the eye, and while it doesn't have a mouth, it clearly is smirking at him. In fact, the Akuma then gets pissed off at the idea that it's smirking at him. Before the Akuma can even react to the smirk, the innocence then turns into a bunch of whip cloths that just shred the Akuma. And the Akuma is just lying there screaming in pain as Alan's innocent then jumps to Alan himself and fuses together. And we see the arm of Alan that was slowly disintegrating starting to reform, and then he appears out of the water, standing in full glory in his new form. Even though it's currently missing both its arms, it goes straight for Alan. He needs to kill him because it realizes that he's the threat, but Alan is able to move so fast the Akuma can't even see him, and he's just cut down. You gotta remember, Lian Li was having trouble fighting at level 3. Now, it was a close combat type, so it had a durable body, but still, the fact that Alan is now so overpowering that he can speed blitz and completely disassemble a level 3 is insane. While Alan took him apart, he didn't actually kill the Akuma. Instead, he decided to basically crucify what's left of the corpse and start asking it questions. Specifically, who sent you and where are they located? The Akuma then says, I'll tell you if you let me live. And Alan's like, of course. The Akuma then looks at him as Alan's smirking and goes, you're a liar. But it doesn't matter. It was Tiki Meek and he's in Edo waiting for you. It starts laughing, saying that it isn't just Tiki Meek, it's also 4 other Noah, the Earl, and all your friends who are probably being slaughtered as we speak. And it starts laughing its ass off. Alan then, of course, exercises the Akuma, because obviously he was lying, he was going to free its soul no matter what. It then tells Alan to take the Noah's Ark that it used to get here. It can go through space, so just go through that and you'll get to Edo. Easy. We then get a proper viewing of the entirety of Alan's new innocence, and it is referred to as the true form of his innocence. It is then given the name Clown Crown. A little jump in time, maybe a day and a half. Alan just got done in his examination. He's perfectly healthy. In fact, his new arm works perfect. It's a little numb though, but that should be pretty standard. It literally just got grown back. The main branch of the Black Order sent over files to the Eastern branch on Alan, and so Buck is able to compare the old data of his original innocence and now this new data, and Buck quickly realizes that what Alan had been using this entire time was like raw ore. It was unstable and just wasn't proper. This is refined and pure innocence that is now circulating through his body. And the only explanation Buck can think of is the simple fact that up to this point, Alan has been very conflicted, which makes sense. He's only 15. And so his entire life, he's just been focusing on the Akuma. But after battle, getting to know people and all this, he was finally able to become a more rounded, more reasonable human being who cares about both Akuma and humans. That was the thing that was always lacking, which is why his innocence never really decided to work with him properly. Buck thinks it's tragic that Alan is going to have to go back to the battlefield because he's still just a kid in his eyes. But at the same time, he's glad that Alan has finally accepted more than just the Akuma. He's accepted humanity and himself. As for the the Ark. They didn't let Alan immediately go on it, obviously. The scientists want to check it out. They're collecting as much data as possible because they want to move the thing to headquarters so they can then decide what to do with the Ark. But for now, the scientists, like I said, are trying to collect as much data as humanly possible. Because Alan has already decided he's going to go through this Ark and he's going to go to his friends in Edo. The last thing Alan does before he decides to go into the Ark is he goes to see Fu, who is currently inside of her wall. The reason for this is because she took so much damage she has to recover, and the only way she can do that is inside this wall. We learned about this earlier when she was going out of phase because she was tired. But this time she took so much damage she isn't coming out of that thing for a while, so this is the only way Alan can say bye to her is by talking to a door. They still have the same relationship. She calls him weird because he cares not just for humans but for Akuma, which is just weird. But at the same time, he appreciates all her help, and the two are able to say goodbye on good terms. And that is where we're going to leave it off for now. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up so you enjoy more D. Gray Man and other things. Thank you, and have a great day.